Hi guys, so today I am gonna do another video and I'm gonna do a video that's been highly requested for a long time and I'm sorry that I was so long to do it. Before anything I just want to say the lighting is a bit weird. It's because it's really sunny and I have a bit of the sun on my face, and also I just woke up and it's the day I'm leaving for Kazakhstan and I'm recording this so that I can upload it and have all my videos planified and everything. Anyway, today I'm gonna recommend to you 5 Japanese authors which I really enjoy reading and whose works I find really interesting. Most of them are quite well known, I want to say, but I don't see them very often discussed online, so I thought that maybe it would be a great discovery for you, especially if you're like completely new to Japanese literature. I mean, I could probably do more videos about Japanese literature, and if you are interested, let me know. I could do videos about particular points or the history. That would be really interesting actually, because I have studied it a bit, so yeah. So the first author I want to talk about today is Kawabata. So Kawabata is a huge classic in Japanese literature. He is one of the most well-known authors, and his work has influenced many Japanese authors, but not only. And for example, Yukio Mishima, whom I have already talked about on my channel, has been highly influenced by Kawabata. While being a classic, is a very modern author. The thing that I really like about Kawabata is that it mixes very well some sort of like ancient and traditional Japanese aesthetics and points and little cultural aspects, while being very modern in the way it treats them, in my opinion. It's not difficult to read, but it definitely feels more classical than, let's say, if you've never read anything by Japanese authors, but Haruki Murakami, for example, you're gonna find it very different. It's mostly about beauty, it's about lust, it's about the weird aspects of beauty, and it definitely in that way feels very Japanese, in the sense that it's all about the beauty, but the beauty that's perhaps not permitted or not allowed, and how it sometimes ends or kind of turns into something that's repulsive or disgusting. But yeah, I do like Kawabata's work a lot, so I would highly suggest you reading some of his work, especially if you want to read something that's a bit more like classic. The other one is also a classic, and it's Tanizaki. So Tanizaki is an author which I really like. I have read a lot of his books, and at first I have to say though I was not a big fan. And then I read a few books that really changed my whole perspective on it. What I really like about him is his capacity to make a plot which is so interesting and so much more complex than you would actually think it is. As always, or as very frequently with Japanese literature, it deals with beauty, it deals with desire, with lust, with relationships and things that are restricted or things that are not allowed. It definitely feels more modern than Kawabata. It's probably easier to read because it feels more modern, even though Kawabata's works are really short. Therefore, if you're like, you know, if you want to read something that feels more like a classic but you're not fully committed to it, I suggest Kawabata. The third one is Kobo Abe. So Kobo Abe is really different because his style is very different. Actually, he reminds me of Gogol a lot, and perhaps Kafka a little bit. He has a very absurd and sort of like bitter, dark sense of humor, and you find yourself reading stories which should not be funny by any means and which should be like tragical, but end up being absurd, and it's like it really is interesting from that point of view, that perspective. He has written a very famous book which is Women in the Dunes. In French it's La Femme des Sables, but I think in English it's translated to Woman in the Dunes or Woman in the Sun, whatever. And that's a huge classic. It has been turned into a movie as well. I haven't seen the movie, I've read the book though, and I did really enjoy it. Kobo Abe is often said to be a surrealist. I wouldn't really call him a surrealist. I would say that some of his work is highly surrealist, but not necessarily in the form. Like Kobo Abe is definitely different, and if you like absurd, if you like Russian literature, I feel like you would like him, because his work really reminds me of Gogol, as I said, a little bit of Dostoevsky as well in the bitterness, you know. Fourth author is a woman, and she's called Yoko Ogawa. and once again very different. Yoko Ogawa has a very particular like atmosphere to her works, which are very nostalgic, very quiet, very delicate. It's not poetry, but in the way that it makes you feel, it feels like poetry, if that makes any sense at all. It is very different from every author I have mentioned before. It reminds me of the Zen, where you're supposed to find beauty in simplicity, and that in the way you apprehend time. And I feel like her work is a very mature and beautiful and delicate and very precise representation of the importance of simplicity, of little things, little aspects of life and the passing of time. It's not sad, but it's definitely not happy either. It's just nostalgic, I want to say, kind of, yeah. And the last author I want to talk about is very different as well, and it's Edogawa Ranpo. So it's not his real name. I actually don't know if those are real names for all the other authors, but Edogawa Ranpo is, it's not his real name, and Edogawa Ranpo is, it actually means like walk along the river, Edo, and it has a whole meaning with references to some Western authors. Edogawa Ranpo is like the leading figure of a movement that's called Eroguro, or Eroguro Nansensu in Japanese literature and Japanese art in general, which is basically erotic, grotesque, burlesque and bizarre, and gore as well mixed in. It's easier to read, it's quicker to read, it's kind of disgusting but also very fascinating as well. It's very creepy and weird. It's always stories about, you know, perversion and sexuality and just weird practices and disturbing and unsettling preferences and obsessions that the characters have. But I think it's a very interesting take on, you know, eroticism and just the violence and the very deadly aspect of relationships and love and lust. And it also goes with a very pictorial representation of those things, because Eroguro was also, you know, represented in drawings and paintings. So if you're interested, I really suggest you look out for this. And it has a long tradition. It has a long tradition in Japan of representing scenes of torture and violence and cruelty. It is very cruel and very raw and very sort of like ooh, but it's not like scary, and it's not like, it's actually not very gory as you would think in an American way. It's very sensual. You know, it's shocking maybe in the imagination sense of it, but it's not shocking as in you want to throw up when you're reading the book. So I hope you enjoyed those recommendations. Let me know if you've read any of those authors' work, or if you are willing to, and let me know if you're interested in more literature videos, and I could come up with a lot more. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!